Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Wheeler and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and not just Dungeons & Dragons 5e. This is another Monster Tactics video and we're covering the Giant Scorpion, which is, I have to say, essentially a larger version of the normal Scorpion, which is usually quite small, or like sometimes you can fit them on your hand, sometimes like half your hand. But this thing is significantly larger. It's actually classified as large size. Now, the Giant Scorpion can be found on page 327 of the Monster Manual, and it gives you a brief sort of overview. It doesn't give you any fluff or details around the Giant Scorpion, because I'm assuming that the designers figured there wasn't enough space in the book and that you would probably sort of do a bit of Googling and figure out things yourself. Now, real-life scorpions are not that aggressive. I know that sounds strange, but they aren't. They're not very aggressive, and unless they are disturbed or attacked first, they usually won't go after you. They usually will not sting. They usually don't bite, use their pincers. Okay, they don't usually do any of that. Now, most scorpions only attack if they are hungry or when they are defending themselves. Now, I know that sounds strange, but surprisingly, that is what I've been reading up on the Giant Scorpion. I thought it was quite a cool fact, actually. Now, the other thing that's really weird is the poison that comes from the stinger from the scorpion, a real scorpion, the majority of them aren't very poisonous. Their poison is actually designed to paralyze their victim or slow down their metabolism, while the scorpion gets a chance to crush it to death, essentially, killing it that way. Now, the Giant Scorpion is sort of got the same sort of flavour, which I don't personally like. I think that it needs to be adjusted, and we're going to talk about some adjustments to your Giant Scorpion very, very shortly. One of the things I found really weird when I was reading through the Giant Scorpion stat block and then looking at the research and the information you can find out about real scorpions is some of it is actually, well, I would say it marries up and some of it doesn't. And I'll explain to you why very, very shortly, particularly around the claw attacks, because I've watched lots of videos about how the scorpion actually does its fighting and how it works and how it maneuvers. So scorpions, if they are outmatched, will try to get out of combat by keeping up their defenses. They don't usually fight to the death. So use the disengage action or the dodge action to leave combat when you decide that, okay, your scorpion's getting beaten up too much and it's probably going to bug out at this point. Now, when they leave combat, should they need to do so and disengage or dodge, they don't turn around. They usually keep their front forward facing their enemy and their back, they just back up. That's usually how they operate. The Giant Scorpion, they don't attack just with their claws. They don't usually attack one target with one claw and another target with another claw, which is what is written as the multi-attack for the Giant Scorpion. It actually states here, the scorpion makes 3 attacks, 2 with its claws and one with its stinger during an action, which sounds great. And then it gives you a little bit of information about the claw attack, which is a +4 to hit, and you do 6 points of damage on average, and it's a 8-sided dice +2 in terms of bludgeoning. And it stipulates that the creature is grappled. Now, that all falls in line with normal scorpions. What I find a little unusual is it states here that the scorpion has 2 claws, each of which can grapple only one target. Now, this is where it doesn't make sense. And I'm not sure that necessarily this circumvents the stat block in any way, but normally when a scorpion is attacking, it will try to get both pincers onto the same target. Now, whether you classify that as being grappled once or grappled twice, obviously it seems to me that the stat block is suggesting that if 2 claws were holding something or attacking something, that it could only grapple one target. I think you should probably change that to fall more in line with how a real scorpion works. That's my opinion anyway. Now when the giant scorpion does make its attacks, it does 2 claws, so that does the crushing and the grappling, and then it follows up with its stinger. And this is usually, as I said, to subdue its target with its long curved tail when it injects its poison, which, as I said, is not particularly poisonous. Now, that doesn't mean that it won't do some sort of poison damage to your player characters, but real life scorpions don't seem to, I guess, impart the concept of the poison condition, which we're going to talk about. I think you should add the poison condition to the stinger myself. Giant scorpions have blind sight, so they are fine hanging around in dark locations. That's not going to be an issue for them, and it's blind sight up to 60 feet. It doesn't have a particularly high passive perception, but they don't necessarily just live in dark locations. Scorpions can be found in hot locations. They won't necessarily sit themselves out in the sun because their shell will heat them up and literally cook them from the inside out. But they will be found outside of dark locations as well. Now, how does this work? The scorpion will grapple with its target using both claws and use its stinger. And if it can't get enough purchase with just doing that, it will usually drag the creature around and try to get it into a better position. So once you've grabbed your target with your claws, my suggestion is have your scorpion move, and particularly move backward. Drag the target to a location where the scorpion can do more damage, or at least get a better advantage. Okay, now with 3 attacks, a giant scorpion can get a reasonable amount of damage on a single creature. If you're going to divide that up amongst an entire party of adventurers, unless they're like all level 1, it's really not going to have a huge effect. Now, even though the giant scorpion has a very low intelligence, it's like 1, and its wisdom is 9, so it's still a really smart fighter. So don't assume that when you're using your giant scorpion it would do dumb things. I've watched more than a few battles with giant scorpions against other creatures, and they're very, very clever, and they absolutely do not fight to the death, and they do always try to find the best option. I've seen them back up a wall. It doesn't actually state that the giant scorpion has the ability to sort of walk up the side of a wall, but it does seem to make sense to me that they have some ability to sort of cling to at least some sort of sloped edge. They have a speed of 40 feet, so they can move pretty quickly. Now, as I said, the stinger in the stat block doesn't imbue, it just does poison damage and doesn't imbue the poison condition. I would absolutely add that to it to make it far more interesting, because it's not just about, with monsters, it's not just about removing hit points from your players' characters. Okay, if that's all the monster does, it's a pretty boring monster. It's the other things that it will do and the way that it reacts and interacts with your players, which is more important. Okay, I think I've covered pretty much everything I wanted to talk about with regard to the giant scorpion. So I'm going to bring up the scene with my map and my miniatures so that you can see everything. So this is just a little scene that I put together, a group using a very similar map that I've used over the past couple of days, giant scorpion. Now the giant scorpion isn't necessarily going to target the softest creature. All it's going to do is deal with the greatest threat. And as I said, it's probably not going to come forward unless it's got no other choice. It's going to be the players that instigate this. So by all means, ready in action with your giant scorpion, or take the dodge action as it prepares and they move in. Tank moves in, that'll be its target as the rest of them do whatever they're going to do. Cast spells, shoot it with arrows, use magic, whatever. So 2 claws on this character in the front who's doing the melee combat. Try to grab on and then drag them back if you can. And while doing that, you should be stinging them as well with your stinger, as much as you possibly can. Now I've included some smaller scorpion miniatures because I think if you're going to find a giant scorpion, it's quite possible that it has some young or some youngsters with it. So I would include some smaller scorpions. Now you don't have to. This doesn't have to represent a medium-sized scorpion. You could use a token or something to represent a swarm of insects or a swarm of scorpions or a smaller scorpion. And this doesn't have to represent a medium-sized scorpion. You could just say, well, this is a small-sized scorpion. And there is a stat block in the monster manual for just the standard scorpion. I would include a few smaller scorpions along with your giant scorpion. If you want to present them with more than one giant scorpion, that's fine too. I find that most scorpions don't like to hang out with each other unless they are sort of, if it's the young of the scorpion, they might tolerate them being around. Okay, so that's everything I have to say on the giant scorpion. Hopefully you found this interesting and useful, and if you did, hit the like button and share the video if you think there's somebody who might find this useful. If you aren't already subscribed to my channel and you like this sort of thing, I do videos on monster tactics and other videos for Dungeon Masters, and I also do player videos as well, which should be coming up fairly shortly. If you like the sort of content and you like your content live, I do that quite often. So hit the subscribe button, and beside that is a bell button, or underneath the subscribe button, a bell button that notifies you when I go live. It also lets you know when I publish a new video if I do a pre-recorded video. If you want to support my channel, then watching more of my videos is probably one of the best things you can do. I get a bit of AdSense revenue. I don't do Patreon, but down in the description, like many channels, I have an affiliate link. You buy stuff online, I get a small commission, and you pay exactly the same price, and you don't even have to buy the thing that it's linked to, which is quite helpful, I thought. Okay, now if you have any questions and feedback, now is the time. Put it in the chat box. Otherwise, if you're not part of the live stream, you can ask your questions down in the comments later on when you get an opportunity. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. And if you can, try to keep rolling a 20. Don't roll the 1. Where is it? No, that's a 7. That's a 1. There's the 20. You want to be rolling that one.